Waking up in ancient Egypt, the air is heavy, and though the sun has not yet risen, you are already awake. You have spent the night lying on a mat made of reeds, woven together by hand, and stuffed with whatever straw your family could gather. There is no softness in it, no spring or cushioning, only the hard reminder of the earth beneath you. If you were lucky, you may have had a wooden bed frame, a simple one with legs carved from rough wood, perhaps strung with rope to hold your mat above the ground. Most people do not have such luxury, so you would have slept low to the floor. The mat creaks when you shift, sending a puff of dust into the air. The dust never truly leaves. It settles into every corner of the house, seeps into the cracks of the mudbrick walls, and clings to your skin no matter how many times you try to wash it away. Your sleep, if you could call it restful, has been interrupted many times. There are mosquitoes buzzing persistently in your ears, leaving itchy bites across your arms and legs. There are beetles and fleas, making a small kingdom of your bedding. Flies never fully vanish, even in the night, and if you left food uncovered anywhere in the house, you probably woke at least once to brush them off your skin. Privacy is also a luxury you do not have. Your home is small, a few rooms at most, and you share it with your family. Parents, children, perhaps grandparents, maybe even cousins. You wake up to the shifting and coughing of others, to the sound of children stirring, to the grunt of someone rolling over. It is not silence that greets you in the morning, but the collective breathing of the people who share the same walls. As you sit up, the air is already warm. The night never brought true relief. The thick heat of Egypt lingers, even when the sun has dipped below the horizon, and the mudbrick walls, which absorb the day's sun, release it slowly through the night. You slept sweating, and you wake sweating, your skin sticky with salt and grit. The window, if you have one, is only a hole in the wall, covered perhaps with a cloth if you were trying to keep out the worst of the dust. There is no glass, nothing to seal the house. The air can flow freely, but so too can the sand, the flies, and the stench of the outside world. And there is a stench. It is everywhere. There are no toilets, no underground pipes, no sewage systems in the homes of ordinary people. Waste is carried out, or sometimes tossed carelessly into the street, mingling with animal droppings and the sour smell of stagnant water. Goats, chickens, or even donkeys may share your living space, and you wake to the smell of them, sharp and earthy. Smoke from last night's cooking fire lingers as well, mixed with the heavy smell of unwashed bodies and mudbrick. It is not a pleasant smell, but it is one you would grow used to, because it is the background of every day of your life. You rub the sleep from your eyes, and perhaps you reach for water, though you know better than to drink it plain. Nile water is not clean. It carries silt, parasites, and disease, but it is still the source of all life in this land. Instead of drinking it raw, you will later consume it in the form of beer, thick, heavy, filling beer made from barley. Even children drink it, because it is safer than water and provides much-needed calories. For now, you splash a little on your face, scooping it with your hands from a clay jar, feeling its coolness for only a moment before the air warms your skin again. Hygiene, though simple, is important. You cleanse yourself not with soap, which does not exist, but with natron, a natural salt mixture gathered from dry lakes. It is coarse and sharp, leaving your skin feeling raw, but it helps wash away sweat and odors. Your teeth, too, must be cleaned, though your toothpaste is unlike anything you would imagine. It is a gritty mixture of crushed ash, burnt eggshells, and sometimes pumice stone. As you grind it against your teeth, you feel the sand-like texture wearing them down. Egyptians lived with constant dental pain, their molars ground flat, sometimes down to the nerves, from years of chewing gritty bread and using abrasive powders. This is part of your daily life, not minty freshness, but the slow wearing away of your smile. Then there is adornment. Both men and women in ancient Egypt line their eyes with kohl. You would dip a small stick into a black paste of ground galena or soot and carefully smear it along your eyelids. The black lines were not only for beauty but for function. They shielded your eyes from the relentless glare of the sun and helped repel flies, which carry disease. Sometimes you would add green malachite powder for extra color, another protective measure believed to guard against illness. So, even if you are a farmer about to spend the day sweating in the fields, you still rise each morning and paint your face, because to leave your eyes bare would be uncomfortable and, to your culture, unwise. Dressing is simple. You wear linen, spun from flax grown along the riverbanks. It is light and airy, though scratchy by modern standards. Men wear kilts or short skirts. Women wear straight, sheath-like dresses. Children often go without clothes entirely until they are older. There are no buttons, no zippers, only simple folds and knots. Shoes, if you own them, are sandals made of reeds or leather, but most of the time you go barefoot, feeling the dust and sand between your toes as soon as you step outside. Breakfast awaits you, though it is not a meal that would excite modern tastes. The staple of every meal is bread and beer. The bread is coarse, made from barley or emmer wheat, ground between stone. As the grain is crushed, tiny bits of stone grind into the flour, so that every bite carries grit. Your teeth crunch against it, slowly wearing down with every meal. The bread is dense, filling, and sometimes flavored with dates or honey, if you are fortunate, but usually plain. Alongside it, you drink beer, though it is not the golden, bubbly drink you might imagine. Egyptian beer is thick and porridge-like, often with floating bits of grain still inside. It is cloudy, sour, and more food than drink, but it is safe, and it is sustaining. Even children drink it, because there is no cleaner alternative. Onions and garlic are common accompaniments. Eaten raw, their pungent bite filling your mouth. Sometimes you may have figs, dates, or fish if your family has access, but meat is rare. So you sit in the dim light of the morning, tearing at chewy bread, sipping at grainy beer, and crunching on onions. This is breakfast, and it will be breakfast again tomorrow, and the day after, and for every morning of your life. As you eat, the sounds of the village begin to rise. Other families wake, animals bleat and cluck, children cry. The streets fill with movement. There are no cars, no wheels clattering on stone, only footsteps, voices, and the bray of donkeys. The air outside is already heating, and soon the full strength of the Egyptian sun will bear down. Your day will be long, filled with labor. Farmers must tend the irrigation channels, hauling water from the Nile with shadoofs, simple wooden poles weighted with stones to lift buckets of water. Craftsmen head to their workshops, where the air will be filled with the sound of chisels, hammers, and saws. Women grind grain endlessly at the household quern, a back-breaking repetitive task. Children help fetch water, chase goats, or knead dough for bread. There is no idle time, no day of rest, apart from festival days when work pauses to honor the gods. You know, as you sit chewing your bread, that the day will exhaust you. The sun will beat down, the dust will cling to your skin, and your body will ache. But there is no choice. Life in ancient Egypt is not built for comfort. It is built for survival, for endurance, for repetition. And so, every day begins the same. You wake sweating on a mat. You cleanse with harsh salts. You paint your eyes against the sun. You dress in scratchy linen, and you eat bread that grinds your teeth to dust. You do not have the luxuries of modern life. There is no mattress, no coffee, no shower, no clean bathroom, no toothbrush with soft bristles. There is only what nature provides and what tradition demands. If you were to wake in ancient Egypt, you would find yourself sore, dirty, thirsty, and already tired before the day had even begun. And yet, for the people who lived it, this was not strange. This was simply life, ordinary, unremarkable, expected. They did not complain of missing comforts, because comforts as you know them did not exist. They lived by the rhythm of the sun, by the flow of the Nile, and by the habits of generations. What seems unbearable to you was normal to them. Daily struggles under the sun. The first meal of the day is finished. The gritty bread has left your teeth sore, and the thick beer sits heavy in your stomach. The onions, strong and pungent, cling to your breath. The sun is now climbing over the horizon, and there is no more lingering in the house. The day has begun, and with it, the endless struggle against the heat, the dust, and the demands of work. When you step outside, the light is already harsh. The Egyptian sun does not rise gently. It comes with brilliance, flooding the earth in gold and white. Shadows vanish quickly, and the warmth of the early morning turns swiftly into something more oppressive. Sand crunches under your bare feet. Your skin prickles in the heat, though the day has barely started. There is no cool refuge, no shaded porch with a breeze, no hum of an electric fan. There is only the relentless brightness of the sky and the long hours waiting ahead. If you are a farmer, which most ordinary Egyptians were, your life is tied to the rhythm of the Nile. The river gives everything: food, water, fertile soil, but it also demands labor. Irrigation channels must be dug and maintained. Water must be lifted and carried to the fields. The simplest tool for this work is the shadoof, a wooden beam balanced like a seesaw, with a heavy stone tied to one end and a bucket on the other. You push the bucket into the water, swing it up, and pour it into the channels. Again and again, hour after hour, back bent, muscles straining, sweat dripping down your face. One bucket is never enough. It is a continuous motion, repeated hundreds, even thousands of times in a day. The soil is good, rich with silt from the annual flooding, but farming is not easy. You are bent over rows of barley or emmer wheat, or perhaps tending to flax plants that will one day be spun into linen. The ground is hot, your hands blistered, your back sore. Sand blows into your eyes, and flies swarm around your face. They never stop. They crawl on your lips, buzz in your ears, and gather in every bead of sweat. You swat them away, but they always return. Children are beside you, even the young ones. There is no schooling for ordinary people. Their education is here, in the fields, learning to plant, to carry, to grind. They fetch water from the river, walking back and forth, with jars balanced on their heads, their small bodies straining under the weight. They scatter birds away from the crops, shouting and throwing stones. Their bare feet are toughened by sand and dirt, but they, too, grow tired quickly under the sun. If you are not a farmer but a craftsman, your day is little better. The workshops of the town are small, dark and crowded. The air is filled with dust from stone carving, with smoke from kilns, with the ringing of metal on metal. Potters shape clay at low wheels, their hands caked in mud. Carpenters work with bronze tools, sawing and chiseling wood into furniture or coffins. Stonecutters pound endlessly at limestone blocks, chips flying into their eyes. The sound is constant. Hammer, chisel, scrape. There are no gloves, no goggles, no masks, no earplugs. Your body absorbs the punishment without protection. Some men are conscripted to state projects, building temples, tombs, and monuments. It is not slavery. They are paid in food and beer, but it is grueling work nonetheless. You would spend your days hauling stones, dragging them on sledges across the desert, shouting in unison with your fellows to keep time. Overseers watch carefully, sometimes with whips in hand. The pharaoh's monuments are glorious, but the labor that builds them is endless, exhausting, and painful. If you trip, stumble, or grow weak in the heat, you risk being beaten or dismissed, left without rations. For women, the day is no easier. Much of their work is done at home, but it is constant and heavy. The grinding of grain into flour is perhaps the most back-breaking chore of all. Two heavy stones, one flat on the ground, the other pushed back and forth over it, turn kernels into flour. The motion is repetitive, hour after hour, arms straining, shoulders burning. Kneeling for long stretches on the hard ground wears the body down. Archaeologists have found the skeletons of women with damaged knees and worn joints from years of this task. Bread is the foundation of every meal, and someone must make it daily. There is also cooking, brewing, weaving, cleaning, and caring for children. Food must be baked in clay ovens, fires stoked in the sweltering heat. Beer must be brewed in clay jars, thick and bubbling as it ferments. Linen must be spun and woven on simple looms, a task that consumes hours. Infants must be carried, fed, soothed, and kept alive in an environment filled with disease and danger. Work does not end when the sun sets. It pauses only when exhaustion demands it. All around you, the streets of the village are alive with sound. Donkeys bray as they haul loads of reeds or jars. Chickens scatter in the dust. Neighbors call to one another, exchanging greetings or gossip. Merchants set up small stalls, displaying fish caught in the Nile, vegetables from the fields, or trinkets made in workshops. Children run through the narrow alleys, their laughter mixing with the cries of babies and the barking of dogs. It is noisy, chaotic, full of movement, and yet, for all that activity, it is the same every day. Nothing new appears. No invention arrives to make your life easier. The rhythm of daily struggle is unchanging. The heat grows as the sun climbs higher. By midday, the earth shimmers, shadows shrink. The sky is a merciless blue, unbroken by clouds. You wipe sweat from your forehead, but it returns instantly. Your body feels heavy, your throat dry. There is no cool glass of water, no iced drink waiting, no air-conditioned room to retreat into. Shade is scarce. A mudbrick wall may block the sun, but it does not bring relief. The temperature remains oppressive. Illness is never far away. Eye infections are common, spread by the endless flies. Your eyes sting, grow red, and weep constantly. Stomach problems from spoiled food or dirty water leave you doubled over in pain. Worms and parasites live inside you, stealing your nourishment. Cuts and scrapes quickly fester in the heat, swelling and turning foul. There are remedies, honey, moldy bread, herbal poultices, but they are crude and often ineffective. A small injury can become a lasting problem. A toothache can grow unbearable. A fever can end a life. And always, the priests and healers remind you that the gods must be appeased, for sickness is not only physical but spiritual. The Nile, though life-giving, is also dangerous. Each year it floods, rising and spreading fertile silt across the land. When the floods are generous, crops are good, and there is food enough for all. But when the floods fail, famine follows. Hunger creeps through the villages, bellies ache, and the struggle for survival grows even harder. You never truly escape the uncertainty, never feel fully secure. Every harvest is a gamble, every year a question, and so the day drags on. Work is constant, repetitive, exhausting. The sun burns your skin, the flies harass your face, the dust fills your mouth. Your body aches from bending, lifting, grinding. The hours stretch, and there is no escape until the sun begins to fall again. As the light softens, you begin to feel relief. The tasks slow, the overseers grow less watchful, and families return to their homes. The air cools slightly, though it is still warm. You gather with others, perhaps sharing a simple evening meal of bread, beer, and vegetables. The day's labor is behind you, but tomorrow will be the same. For you, a modern visitor, it is clear, this life is relentless. There is no pause button, no holiday, no luxury of escape. You would tire, fall ill, or collapse under the weight of it. For the Egyptians, it was simply what life required. They endured, day after day, generation after generation, with strength born of necessity. But you would not last long under the Egyptian sun. Life in the village and marketplace, the sun is beginning its slow decline, and though the heat still presses against your skin, there is a subtle shift in the air. The long hours of field labor, of hauling, of grinding, of sweating beneath the weight of the Egyptian sun, are easing. Evening approaches, and with it, one of the most important rhythms of life in ancient Egypt, the gathering of the village. The slow tide of people spilling toward the narrow streets, the market, the spaces where trade and conversation mix. Your body aches as you make your way from the fields. The muscles in your back throb from bending over rows of crops, from lifting buckets of water from the Nile with the heavy swing of the shadoof. Your hands are raw, your stomach growling, your throat dry from the day's dust. And yet, there is no direct walk from work to rest. The village itself demands attention. There are errands to run, goods to barter, and neighbors to greet. The village is small by modern standards, no more than a scattering of mudbrick houses clustered together along dusty paths. They are built close, pressed shoulder to shoulder, their flat roofs rising like steps against the fading light. The walls are thick, made of sun-baked clay bricks, rough and cracked, patched and repaired countless times. Children dart between the houses, bare feet kicking up dust, their laughter high-pitched and shrill. Dogs bark at goats that wander freely, chickens scatter, feathers floating in the air. The streets are alive with motion, and so you step into the rhythm of the market. It is not a market as you would know it, with neat stalls, tidy aisles, and rows of polished goods. No coins clink here. Money, as you imagine it, does not exist in your village. Instead, there is bartering, the constant trading of goods and services, a balancing act of value. Bread for fish, onions for flax, beer for tools. The marketplace is simply an open stretch of ground, perhaps shaded by palm fronds or marked by a stone. Merchants spread their goods on mats or low tables, or simply hold them in their hands, shouting to passers-by. The air is filled with their voices, the bargaining and haggling, the exaggerated praises of their wares. One woman squats on the ground beside a basket of onions, their sharp scent filling the air. Another waves a bundle of garlic, shouting that hers are fresher than any others. A fisherman, his body still damp with Nile water, lays out the day's catch on a reed mat. Small tilapia, catfish, and perch, their scales dull in the heat. Flies swarm immediately, and he swats them away with a branch, though they return the moment he lowers his arm. He yells out, offers, 3 fish for a loaf of bread, 2 for a jar of beer. Nearby, A potter displays his jars and bowls, stacked unevenly in the dust. The clay is rough, the glaze simple, but they are strong, meant to hold beer, water, or grain. His hands are stained permanently with earth, his fingernails cracked from years of shaping mud. He speaks little, letting his pots speak for him. A woman approaches, carrying a woven basket filled with flax, and the two begin to argue, the potter demanding more fiber for his jars, the woman insisting that her flax is finer than most. Children hover nearby, their hands sticky with dates. A trader sells small bundles of dried fruit, figs and dates pressed into clumps, their sweetness a rare treat. The children giggle as they eat, faces smeared with juice, their eyes bright with energy despite the long day. They tug at their mother's skirts, begging for more, their voices rising above the noise of the crowd. The smell of the marketplace is a mixture of everything. Fish left too long in the sun, onions sharp and pungent, garlic strong enough to sting your nose, dates sweet and heavy, animals musky and loud. Smoke drifts from cooking fires where bread bakes in clay ovens, the scent earthy and warm. Dust rises constantly, kicked up by the shuffling of feet, settling into hair, into clothes, into the very air you breathe. It is not pleasant, not clean, but it is familiar, the smell of everyday life. And so you join the bartering. You clutch the small bundle you brought, perhaps bread from your family's oven, perhaps a jar of beer, perhaps flax gathered from the fields. You scan the crowd for what you need. Your eyes settle on the onions. Your family's stores are low. And though the thought of eating raw onion again makes your mouth water with dread, it is necessary. You approach the woman selling them, and the dance begins. She asks for more than you are willing to give. You laugh, shake your head, argue. She insists her onions are the largest, the freshest, the most worthy of trade. You counter with jokes, with flattery, with exaggerated complaints about the toughness of her last batch. Voices rise, hands gesture, neighbors gather to watch. The bargaining is half trade, half performance, and everyone knows it. Finally, with a sigh of mock defeat, she accepts your offer. You hand over your bread, she drops onions into your basket, and both of you walk away believing you have won. Elsewhere, the market hums with other trades. A shepherd offers goat's milk, frothy and warm in clay jars. A brewer ladles beer from a large vat, its surface bubbling, thick and sour. Men trade tools, a bronze chisel exchanged for flax, a wooden hoe traded for grain. Women trade thread for food, baskets for fish, sandals for onions. It is an endless circle of exchange, of balancing what little each family has against what they desperately need. And above it all, there is gossip. The marketplace is not only a place of trade, but of talk. Neighbors gather in clusters, voices low, eyes darting. Stories are exchanged, rumors passed along. Someone speaks of the tax collector coming soon, reminding everyone that a portion of their grain, their beer, their labor belongs to the state. Another whispers of a temple festival in the city, where priests will carry statues of the gods through the streets, their faces hidden behind gold masks. Someone claims the price of fish has risen, because the Nile's waters are lower this year. Another complains that the bread from one family is too coarse, too filled with grit, though she ate it willingly just the day before. For those who live here, the gossip is as important as the trade. It binds the community, gives rhythm to the monotony of work. There is little entertainment beyond what the neighbors provide, little news beyond what spreads from mouth to mouth. The marketplace is where the life of the village breathes, where secrets mingle with laughter, where anger flares and quickly cools, where the endless grind of survival is softened by human connection. But for you, a visitor from another time, the scene is overwhelming. The noise, the smells, the dust, the constant push of bodies, the lack of order. It is chaotic. There are no prices marked, no stalls neatly arranged, no money to count. Every exchange is negotiation, every purchase an argument. You feel lost in it, uncertain of the values, nervous about being cheated. You realize how much you rely on the conveniences of your own time, where shops are structured, transactions simple, goods packaged neatly. Here, nothing is neat, nothing is simple. It is raw, unpolished, and endless. As the sun sinks lower, the market begins to thin. Families carry their goods back to their homes, balancing baskets on their heads, cradling jars against their hips. Merchants pack away what little remains, wrapping baskets, stacking jars, tying bundles of fish in reeds. The dust settles slowly, though the air remains heavy with smells. The market does not truly end, it simply fades, waiting to return again tomorrow with the same voices, the same goods, the same arguments. You walk back through the narrow streets, your basket heavy with onions, your body weary. Around you others do the same, their conversations trailing into the warm night. Children chase each other still, though their steps are slower now, their laughter quieter. Dogs curl in the shade of mud-brick walls. Smoke rises from ovens as families prepare the evening meal, and you realize, as you return home, that life here is not marked by great variety. The village, the marketplace, the gossip, the trade, it is the same every day. The food does not change. The work does not change. The faces do not change. There is no novelty, no sudden delight, no surprise. Life is repetition, survival, endurance. To live here is to repeat the same steps endlessly, as your parents did, and as your children will. For the people of ancient Egypt, this is not misery but normalcy. It is simply life. But for you, accustomed to choice, to comfort, to the distractions of modernity, it would be unbearable. You would feel trapped, suffocated, worn down, not only by the heat and the labor, but by the sheer sameness of it all. The sun has slipped low, the heat softening into the warm glow of dusk, yet the world of ancient Egypt does not quiet. As you sit on the edge of your straw mat, onions piled in the corner from the marketplace, the air carries with it not just the smell of dust and smoke, but also something heavier, something that seems to linger beneath the surface of every life here, the presence of the gods. In your own time, religion may feel like something chosen, personal, or even distant, but in Egypt, it is woven into every breath, every bite of bread, every drop of beer. There is no escape from it, no moment where it does not press against you, demanding acknowledgement. The gods are not only in temples and prayers, but in the very river that feeds the land, in the sun that scorches the skin, in the soil beneath your bare feet. You would find it exhausting. To live here is to live surrounded by spirits and powers that you cannot see, but that everyone insists are real. The Nile floods each year, and they say it is the tears of the goddess Isis for her lost husband Osiris. The sun climbs the sky each morning because the great god Ra sails his golden boat across the heavens, and each night he must fight his way through darkness, threatened by the great serpent, Apophis, before he can rise again. Every grain of wheat you eat is blessed by a deity. Every sickness is caused by a spirit, every misfortune the punishment of a god displeased. As the dusk deepens, you step outside and follow the hum of voices toward the local temple. It is not a grand structure like the colossal temples of Karnak or Luxor, carved with towering columns and endless statues, but a smaller, more modest building of stone, its walls still impressive against the flat mud-brick houses of the village. The smell of incense drifts from its doorway, thick, heavy, sweet, with resins and herbs. Torches flicker at its entrance, their light dancing against carved symbols etched into the stone. The crowd gathers, men and women and children pressing close, their faces turned toward the priests who stand at the top of the steps. The priests are not like ordinary villagers. Their heads are shaved smooth, their skin washed daily with sacred waters, their linen robes fresh and white. They carry themselves with a calm authority, voices strong as they chant words you do not understand, words meant to summon, to praise, to placate the gods. The sound of sistrums rattling fills the air, small metal instruments shaken in rhythm, their jingling tones meant to please the goddess Hathor, lady of music and joy. A drum beats slowly, echoing against your chest, steady as a heartbeat. The crowd sways gently with the rhythm, eyes closed, mouths whispering prayers. Offerings are brought forward, baskets of onions, jars of beer, loaves of bread, bunches of flowers, small carvings of wood or stone. A man places a live goose at the priest's feet, its wings bound, its cries sharp and shrill in the night air. Another places fish still wriggling, caught fresh from the Nile. Smoke rises from incense, mingling with the smell of sweat, animals, and food. The priests lift their arms, chanting louder, their voices rising above the crowd as though reaching for the ears of the gods themselves. For the villagers, this is comfort. The rituals keep the world in balance, ensure the Nile will rise, the crops will grow, the sun will return. The gods, they believe, demand to be fed, to be praised, to be remembered. Neglect them, and disaster will come. The rituals are a shield against chaos, against the endless threats that hover at the edge of life here. famine, plague, death. But for you, standing among them, it is overwhelming. You feel the press of bodies, the heat of the torches, the chant that goes on and on without end. You see the priests wave their incense, hear the prayers spill endlessly from lips cracked by the desert air, and you wonder, how could anyone live like this, under the weight of gods so demanding, so present, so constant? And yet, this is only the surface. Step deeper into their beliefs, and the gods become even more complicated. Each town has its own favorite deity, its own special rituals, its own stories. In one place, Horus, the falcon-headed god, is the protector. In another, Hathor reigns supreme. In some villages, the crocodile-headed Sobek is worshipped, offerings left by the riverbanks to keep the real crocodiles at bay. Even the cats that slink through the streets are sacred, tied to the goddess Bastet, symbols of protection and fertility. Imagine the confusion of it. Dozens upon dozens of gods, each demanding loyalty, each tied to every act of life. You must know which prayers to say when baking bread, which charms to wear during childbirth, which offerings to bring when you are ill. To forget one, to fail in even the smallest ritual, risks angering forces beyond your control. The burden is endless. The afterlife, too, hangs heavy in their thoughts. Unlike you, who may think of death as distant or abstract, the ancient Egyptians carry it with them every day. Death is not an end but a journey, one that requires preparation, protection, and constant ritual. Each night, as you lay down on your mat, villagers remind their children to behave well, not only for the pharaoh's laws, but for the weighing of the heart. For they believe that after death, your heart will be weighed against the feather of Mat, goddess of truth and balance. If your heart is heavier, burdened by sin, it will be devoured by the monstrous Ammit, part lion, part crocodile, part hippopotamus, and you will cease to exist. The fear of that judgment seeps into every choice, every prayer, every offering. A slip of the tongue, a failed ritual, a forgotten promise, all could doom your soul. To live in ancient Egypt is to live in constant preparation for death, to carry the weight of eternity on your shoulders while still toiling for survival in the fields and marketplace. And yet, for all its fear, the religion also offers beauty. The temples, even the small ones, are carved with stories. Gods with falcon heads soaring above humans, women with cow horns cradling the sun, serpents curling through the stars. The myths are told by firelight, stories of Osiris cut into pieces and restored by Isis, of Horus battling his uncle Seth for the throne, of Ra sailing his golden bark across the sky. The villagers cling to these tales, repeating them with the same comfort as you might repeat a bedtime story. They are not entertainment, but explanations, the only way to understand why the world is the way it is. Still, as the ritual drags on into the night, as the priests chant louder, as the crowd sways and whispers, as the incense thickens and the goose is lifted for sacrifice, you feel the press of suffocation. There is no space here for doubt, no room for questioning. To question is to invite punishment, to risk being cast out, to anger the gods. And so you too must bow your head, though the words mean nothing to you, though the air feels heavy, though your stomach turns at the scent of blood and incense mingling. For the villagers, this is life. For you, it is a weight too heavy to bear. The gods are everywhere, in the Nile, in the sun, in the fields, in the very air. They demand endless prayers, endless offerings, endless obedience, and as you stumble back through the darkened streets, the chants still ringing in your ears, you realize once again, you would not last long here. Medicine, disease, and death. The night is quiet, the air warm, and the hum of insects drifts through the stillness. You lie on a mat of woven reeds, the dust of the day still clinging to your skin. For a moment, you think you may find rest, but the discomfort creeps in, an itch along your arms, the dull ache in your back, the grumbling of your stomach. In your world, you might reach for medicine, a pill, a glass of clean water. Here, in ancient Egypt, there is none of that. Illness is never far, and when it comes, it lingers like a shadow you cannot escape. You begin to understand that living here is not only a struggle against hunger and heat, but also against the frailty of your own body. Disease is everywhere. Parasites swim in the water of the Nile. Flies swarm in the fields, carrying infection. Mosquitoes buzz in the darkness, leaving fever in their bite. The food is coarse, filled with sand and grit that wear your teeth down to painful stubs. Bones ache from labor. Cuts fester in the heat. The smallest wound, ignored in your time, can become deadly here. And when sickness comes, medicine is not what you know. The Egyptians are skilled, in their own way, but their knowledge is bound up in religion, magic, and half-formed science. They believe that illness is caused not only by natural forces but by angry gods, by wandering spirits, by curses whispered by enemies. To heal is not simply to clean a wound or reduce a fever, but to soothe both body and soul, to drive away unseen powers with prayers and spells. You wake one morning with a throbbing in your stomach, perhaps from spoiled food, perhaps from parasites in the water. A healer is called, not a doctor in the sense you understand, but a sensei, one trained in the old ways. He comes with a basket of herbs, a pouch of charms, and a voice heavy with incantations. He feels your pulse, studies the color of your skin, listens as you describe the pain. Then he mixes crushed herbs with honey, thick and sweet, and presses it to your lips. Honey is prized here, both as food and as medicine, believed to soothe the body and drive out infection. Yet it does not end with honey. He murmurs a spell, invoking the gods, calling upon Isis, who healed her husband Osiris, to heal you as well. He places a charm carved with protective symbols near your bed. He sprinkles natron, the same salt used in mummification, around the floor to purify the space. You are told to swallow bitter herbs, to drink foul-tasting beer laced with plant extracts, to trust not only in the plants but in the words themselves. For to the Egyptians, the spell is as important as the medicine. To take a remedy without the incantation is to leave the cure incomplete. Some remedies are familiar: garlic for infection, castor oil as a laxative, willow bark for pain. They know, in their way, the power of these plants, though they do not understand the science behind them. Other treatments, however, seem strange. Crocodile dung, mixed with honey, pressed into a wound. Pig's liver, roasted and ground, applied to the eyes. The blood of lizards, rubbed on the skin. They believe that disease can be tricked, driven out, or bound by these substances. To you, it seems filthy, dangerous, yet to them, it is the way of survival. Dentistry is perhaps the most miserable of all. The bread you eat daily is filled with grit, ground into the flour by stone mills. Over years your teeth wear down, enamel stripped away, nerves exposed, abscesses form, swelling the gums, filling the mouth with pain. There are no fillings, no proper tools. The SNOI may try to scrape the tooth, may pack it with herbs and honey, may recite spells to ease the suffering. But when the pain grows too much, there is only extraction, done with crude instruments, without anesthesia, without relief. The screams echo in the hot air, and the only comfort is that the tooth will not trouble you again, though the infection may still spread. Childbirth, too, is dangerous. For women, every pregnancy carries the shadow of death. There are no hospitals, no clean instruments, no safe surgeries. A midwife may come, experienced in the ways of birth, carrying amulets of the goddess Tauret, the hippo-headed protector of mothers and children. She burns incense, places charms of Hathor by the bed, and murmurs prayers as the labor begins. Herbs may be given to ease the pain, though little truly helps. The woman squats on bricks, supported by family, sweating, straining, crying out as life enters the world. Sometimes it ends well, the baby's cries filling the room. Other times, the silence is heavy, the air thick with grief. Death in childbirth is common, expected, feared. Mothers are buried with the prayers of priests, their infants swaddled and placed in tiny graves. Infection spreads easily. A small cut from a reed in the Nile, a scrape from hauling stones, can swell and redden, pus oozing in the heat. Without antibiotics, the body must fight alone, and often it loses. Fevers rise, the mind drifts in delirium, the body weakens. The healer comes again, chanting louder, sprinkling herbs, applying poultices of moldy bread and resin. Sometimes it works, for unknowingly the mold carries healing properties. Sometimes it does not, and the family prepares for mourning. Death itself is ever present, never hidden away as in your time. Children die young, often before they reach 5 years. A cough, a fever, a bite from a mosquito can end a life. Adults fall to infection, to hunger, to the grind of endless labor. The average life is short, 40 years if fortune is kind, often less. And so the Egyptians prepare constantly, not only in medicine but in ritual, for the journey that must follow. The process of death is as structured as life. When the body fails, it is taken to the embalmers, wrapped in linen, anointed with oils, dried with natron until the flesh is preserved. The wealthy are buried with goods, amulets, food, furniture, even small figurines called ushabtis, meant to serve them in the afterlife. The poor cannot afford such luxuries. Their bodies may be wrapped simply in mats of reeds, buried in shallow sand. The desert itself drying and preserving what little remains. Yet even in death, the weight of religion presses down. Spells from the Book of the Dead are recited, guiding the soul through the dangers of the underworld. The heart is weighed against the feather of Mat, the soul's worth judged in the hall of Osiris. Failure means annihilation, the devouring jaws of Amit. Success means eternal life in the field of reeds, a perfect mirror of Egypt itself, where crops grow tall and the Nile flows forever. For the villagers, this is hope, comfort, the promise that all their suffering is not in vain. For you, it is strange, heavy, unending. The smell of illness, of herbs, of decay clings to the village. It mingles with the smoke of cooking fires, the dust of the fields, the stench of animals. The healer moves from house to house, carrying his basket of plants and charms, repeating the same spells, over and over, day after day. Sometimes he succeeds, sometimes not, but always he leaves behind the same certainty. Death is never far. As the night deepens, you lie awake again, listening to the coughing of a neighbor, the wail of a mother, the chanting of a priest. The air is thick with it, with fear, with sickness, with the endless weight of mortality. In your time, medicine offers comfort, control, hope. Here, it is uncertain, strange, half-effective at best. Here, disease stalks every shadow, and death waits always just beyond the door. And you realize, as the darkness presses close, that you would not last long in ancient Egypt, not with its sickness, not with its cures, not with the heavy presence of death. The struggle would overwhelm you, as it overwhelms all who live here. The afterlife, journey beyond the tomb. The village is hushed. The night has drawn its heavy cloak over the land, and the stars glimmer like 1,000 tiny lamps scattered across the dark sky. The Nile glistens faintly in the distance, its waters whispering softly in the stillness. You lie on your mat, listening, feeling the silence press in. But in ancient Egypt, silence is never empty. It is filled with presence, of gods, of spirits, of the dead who walk in unseen realms. Here, life and death are never far apart. And so, tonight, you are drawn not to the world of the living, but to the world beyond. The Egyptians lived their lives always with an eye turned toward death. It is not morbid, not something hidden away, but simply part of existence, as natural as the rise of the sun or the flooding of the river. Death is not an end, they believe, but a passage, a long and perilous journey into the afterlife. And just as every journey in life requires preparation, food, water, tools, so too must one prepare for the journey after death. You feel this truth around you as the story unfolds, heavy and inescapable. A man in the village has died, an old farmer whose back long ago bent from years of labor in the fields. His family wails, their voices high, keening cries that echo through the dusty streets. Neighbors gather, not only to grieve but to help, for death is never private here. The body is taken swiftly to the embalmers, men skilled in the work of preserving flesh for eternity. The place smells of resin and salt, sharp and strange. The body is washed, the limbs stretched and laid upon a stone table. The head priest begins the ritual with prayers to Anubis, the jackal-headed god of mummification, guardian of the dead. His voice is steady, practiced, as his hands move with ritual precision. The brain is removed through the nostrils with slender hooks, discarded, thought unnecessary for the afterlife. The chest is opened, organs lifted carefully, placed in jars carved with the heads of gods: falcon, baboon, jackal, human. These are the canopic jars, protectors of the body's inner life. The cavity is filled with spices, with resin, with cloth. The skin is rubbed with oils, coated with thick layers of natron, a salt that dries and preserves. For 40 days, the body rests in this salt, shrinking, stiffening, darkening as it slowly becomes something other than flesh. You watch from the shadows, uneasy, but here it is not strange. It is necessity, it is tradition, it is the only way to secure eternity. When the days are done, the body is wrapped in linen, layer upon layer upon layer, hundreds of strips binding every limb, every finger, every toe. Amulets are tucked into the wrappings, scarabs carved with protective spells, eyes painted to watch the road ahead, ankhs to symbolize life. Each layer is sealed with resin, sticky and fragrant, until at last the body is whole again. Not as a man, but as a mummy, bound for eternity. The coffin is prepared, painted with bright colors, covered with hieroglyphs that speak prayers to the gods. Images of Osiris, green-skinned lord of the underworld, watch over the figure. The family gathers again, wailing, as the coffin is sealed, then carried through the streets in a procession. Priests walk ahead, shaking sistrums, rattles whose sound pleases the gods. Women trail behind, beating their chests, smearing their faces with dust. The air is filled with chanting, with the drone of prayers, with the smell of incense that drifts in thick, sweet clouds. The burial ground lies beyond the village, where the desert stretches into silence. The tomb is not grand, not like the pyramids of kings, but a small chamber dug into the earth. Still, it is filled with offerings, jars of beer, loaves of bread, dried fish, fruits, all to feed the soul on its journey. Clay figures of servants, the ushapes, are placed beside the coffin. They will awaken in the afterlife, ready to labor in the fields of eternity, so the man need not toil again. The coffin is lowered, the tomb sealed with stone, and then the real journey begins. The Egyptians believe that the soul, the ka, rises from the body at death. The ka is like a double, a shadow self, the life force that needs food and drink. Without offerings, the ka grows weak, so the family brings bread and beer to the tomb, calling the dead man's name aloud, for the name must never be forgotten. To speak the name is to keep the soul alive, but the ka is only one part. There is also the Ba, the personality, often shown as a bird with a human head. The Ba can leave the tomb, flutter into the world of the living, visit the family in dreams, perch by the offering table. At night, the Ba and the ka must reunite with the body, so that the soul remains whole. It is a delicate balance, maintained by ritual, by remembrance, by the endless prayers of the living. The journey is long. The soul must travel through the duat, the underworld, a realm of shadows and trials. The path is filled with gates, each guarded by fearsome creatures, part human, part beast. The soul must know their names, must speak the right words, must carry the right spells to pass safely. Without the knowledge, without the prayers written on papyrus or carved upon the coffin, the soul will falter, lost in darkness. You imagine it, step by step. The soul passes through rivers of fire, deserts of sand, fields of knives. Serpents rise, jaws wide, eyes glowing. Crocodile-headed demons hiss from the waters. At each gate, the soul must recite words of power, charms taken from the Book of the Dead, a collection of spells meant to guide and protect. To stumble is to fall, to fail is to vanish forever. Finally, the soul reaches the Hall of Judgment. Here stands Osiris, tall and still, wrapped like a mummy, skin green as new life, crown upon his head. At his side stand Isis and Nephthys, sisters and goddesses, their wings outstretched. Anubis jackal-headed leads the soul forward. Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe, holds a tablet, ready to record. Before them lies the great scale of truth. On one side of the scale rests the feather of Ma'at, goddess of order and justice. On the other lies the heart of the dead, heavy with life lived, heavy with memory. The gods watch in silence as the scale tips. If the heart is light, balanced with the feather, the soul is judged pure, worthy of eternal life. If the heart is heavy, weighed down with sin, it is cast to Ammit, the devourer, a monster with the body of a lion, the head of a crocodile, the haunches of a hippopotamus. The heart is swallowed, the soul erased, condemned to nothingness. For those who pass, eternity awaits. The soul enters the field of reeds, a perfect Egypt, where the Nile flows clear, where the crops grow high, where there is no hunger, no sickness, no toil. Families reunite, kings walk among peasants. The sun shines gently, never scorching, never fading. It is peace, everlasting, the dream of every villager who labors in the heat of the real Nile fields. For you, though, it is strange to live each day not only for survival but for this endless preparation, this heavy ritual, this constant fear of being forgotten. To speak prayers daily, to leave offerings, to trust that your soul will find the right words in the darkness. The weight of it presses against your chest as you imagine the journey. It is beautiful, yes, but also terrifying, relentless. The stars above seem to shimmer brighter as you think of it, the souls of the dead shining in the sky, the gods sailing across the heavens in their golden boats. The wind carries the faint sound of chanting from the temple, prayers for the dead rising into the night. The smell of incense lingers in the air, sweet and smoky. Here in ancient Egypt, death is never hidden. It is present in the streets, in the homes, in the very air. It shapes how people live, how they eat, how they build, how they love. To them, it is not grim, but necessary, a passage, a continuation, a hope. Yet for you, heavy with its rituals, with its endless rules, with its strange and beautiful imagery, it is almost too much to bear. And as you drift into sleep, lulled by the rhythm of the Nile, by the whisper of desert winds, by the endless murmur of prayers, spoken into the darkness, you know this truth. You would not last a day in ancient Egypt. Not in life, not in death, not in the long and winding journey beyond the tomb.